Oh,
Finally, it was given 4 coats of red lead paint.
Red. And lead paint, but of course they didn't know about the dangers of lead, but red? The Eiffel Tower was originally red. Evidently, the Eiffel Tower is in trouble. That's what it's saying here. We have the channel, the B1M, and the video is called The $64 Million Race to Save the Eiffel Tower. So that's what we're watching. We're going to check it out. I don't know what's wrong with the Eiffel Tower, but I do know that this video, or this picture here, has scaffolding, it looks like, and then like some nets and stuff and like tons of tools. You can tell they're working on it. So is it in danger? Yeah, well, we're gonna find out, I guess. I don't know much about the Eiffel Tower besides it's there. They call it the Eiffel Tower. That's pretty much it. So we're gonna check it out. There's links down below for the original video, links for Patreon, links to buy a coffee cup or a shirt or something. Go check it out. Hit like.
The Eiffel Tower is in danger. The landmark has survived an occupation, 2 world wars, and the prospect of demolition back in 1903.
They were going to demolish it in 83? I didn't know that.
But all of those threats pale in comparison to the tower's greatest enemy, rust. For more than a century, this iconic monument has been fighting an uphill battle against the wind and rain of Paris. A battle that it might now be losing. This is the $64 million fight to save the Eiffel Tower.
Okay, so probably they've been replacing it piece by piece, right? I would assume they've been fabricating replacement pieces here and there, you know, for general and overall maintenance. But it's getting to the point, I'm assuming, that that's just not enough. Are they going to have to rebuild the whole thing? Is the Eiffel Tower even going to be the original Eiffel Tower one day? Or is the whole thing going to be a whole brand new, you know, built out of titanium or something crazy? I don't know. The B1M, huh?
So, the Eiffel Tower was never supposed to be standing for this long. It was meant as a temporary monument for the 1889 World's Fair.
Really?
To rise over Paris for just 20 years before being torn down.
Yeah, but then it's like, yeah, but this thing's cool. We want to keep it. Like, what? Why would you just design it to be torn down? Like, that's cool. 1889 World's Fair. Never knew that.
Now, 135 years later, it's not only still standing, but has cemented itself as one of the most beloved and iconic structures in the world. But the tower is starting to show its age.
The famous Paris landmark and the symbol of love, the Eiffel Tower, is crumbling, and the only solution to stop its decay is a full renovation.
Ideally, the tower was meant to be repainted every 7 years, but the last restoration effort was delayed thanks to the pandemic. Now it's in the middle of a $64 million repaint to make it presentable for the 2024 Paris Olympics.
Okay.
However, some experts have criticised this repaint as being little more than a cosmetic touch-up, which doesn't address the advanced state of rust the tower is now in. In a confidential report leaked to French magazine Marianne, one unnamed manager said that
Well, I want to see what it says. It says, we saw Notre Dame burn. Will we see the Eiffel Tower fall? According to several confidential reports, the most famous French monument has been in a very degraded condition for several years, and its maintenance leaves something to be desired. The 20th painting campaign, launched in 2018 in anticipation of the Olympic Games, aimed to remedy it and double the effort, but it turns into a fiasco. In quotes, it says, in an emergency in some places, a simple layer of paint is just brushed on the existing layers, which flake and do not hold. It is a heresy. Quote, denounces a specialist in these issues, quote, destroyed, unquote, by curried technical choices. Okay.
confidential report leaked to French magazine Marianne, one unnamed manager said that if Gustav Eiffel, the engineer behind the tower, had visited it today, he'd have had a heart attack. Now, Gustav Eiffel
Well, he'd be like, why is this thing still here? It's supposed to have been demolished after 20 years. Here we are, 100 and some years later. But no, yeah, definitely, he'd be like, well, this isn't safe. Not safe at all. Because, like, big gust of wind and rust in the right spot could make that thing crumble.
Eiffel actually anticipated that one day he'd have had a heart attack. Now, Gustav Eiffel actually anticipated that rust would be a problem for this tower, and he put in place plans to cope with it. But first, he had to convince Parisians not to tear it down altogether. It's the 80s. Not those 80s, the 1880s. Paris was set to host the World's Fair at the end of the decade, and the city needed something spectacular. It was to be the centenary of the French Revolution, and Paris wanted to show off the engineering skill of the French people.
Well, engineering was really on steroids in the late 19th century, and the French called it La Belle Époque. So confidence was high, progress was embraced, and I guess personal and corporate and national wealth was also growing.
Yeah, so there definitely was like a huge boom in building stuff in the late 1800s for sure. Like a lot of cities started getting bigger, big buildings, skyscraper kind of things started popping off.
Seemingly, for a while, engineers almost could do anything that was asked of them.
Gustav Eiffel won a competition to design a glittering new monument with his plan for a 1,000-foot tower that was to be by far the tallest man-made structure on Earth. It would handily beat...
Okay, so that was the tallest at the time. Okay.
...the then current tallest, the Washington Monument. And actually before that, the tallest structures in the world were all churches and the pyramids.
The Eiffel Tower was special because it was, by some considerable margin, the tallest man-made structure in the world at the time. It was 1,000 feet high when completed, 300 meters. And it retained that position as the tallest man-made structure for 40 years.
While Eiffel is now synonymous with the tower that takes his name, he was also one of the greatest engineering minds of the 19th century. Among his many achievements were the Porto Viaduct and the Statue of Liberty. His initial designs for the Eiffel Tower took his engineering concepts to incredible new heights.
So I was wrong earlier in stating that in this time period was when they were making skyscrapers and stuff. Clearly that was 40 years prior to skyscrapers. So this was revolutionary at the time.
The first challenge was figuring out how to build something that tall that wasn't also impossibly heavy. When the Washington Monument was being built, it kept sinking into the ground because of the enormous weight of all the marble and granite it's formed from.
I bet.
Eiffel solved this problem by making his tower out of iron, a lightweight but strong material. It looked quite literally like something from a Jules Verne novel. A large pylon with 4 columns made of latticework girders that met at the top. To make it more palatable to the general public, architect Stephen Silvestre was brought on board to tidy up the design. He gave us the stonework legs, the arches that link the columns with the first levels, and the bulb-like crown at the top.
The first thing to point out is that the original concept for the Eiffel Tower was not Gustav Eiffel himself. It was 2 of his employees, Maurice Koechlin and Emile Nouguier. And they worked in their own time and prepared designs for this idea that they had for the 1889 exposition. And they showed their drawings to Gustav. Silvestre was asked to improve the aesthetic of what they had come up with as engineering solutions to a very tall tower.
So the Eiffel Tower isn't even named after the same guy that really came up with the design or the idea. I've been lied to for 37 years. Not lied to, but just under the impression that the Eiffel Tower was designed by a guy named Eiffel. No, it was designed by a couple of his employees and then improved upon by somebody else. It was just his project, I think. So he got the name, right? That's crazy.
As nothing like this had ever been built before, Eiffel had to take special consideration of the enormous wind pressures the tower would face at varying heights.
The wind resistance is a really neat feature of Eiffel's approach to the design, and the analogies with great trees like great oaks or sequoias, where the trunk gets progressively broader and broader as it gets to the root system.
Exactly. And with wind resistance, it does help that the thing is hollow. Or, like air can go through it for the most part.
The distinctive curves are the product of Eiffel's mathematical equations to create the most wind-resistant form. If the tower had been built as a simple straight line, it would have wobbled dangerously back and forth. This design tricks the wind into travelling downwards. The lattice structure also evenly distributes loads across the framework so that when high winds do hit, it remains stable. Today, those calculations would be tested out with models on computers well before the tower was constructed. But back then, Eiffel only had his theories.
Has anybody ever calculated this on a computer model to see how accurate the guy actually was in the design?
They were gambling 2 years of work and the modern equivalency of $37 million.
A lot of money.
The pressure was immense. Construction began on July 1st, 1887. While the Washington Monument took several decades to build, the Eiffel Tower took just 22 months.
But it was really cleverly built, it was efficiently built in only 2 years, which is quite impressive, and had a fairly small workforce of a few hundred only, steel workers and then teams of painters, of course. And Eiffel used some really smart techniques for craneage that was designed to climb the sides of the tower on lift rails as progressively the tower emerged and got higher and higher.
But the structure wasn't built where it is today. Every part of it was made in Eiffel's factories on the outskirts of Paris.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, you gotta make it in a factory first. And of course, they didn't fabricate the metal right there on the side of the street, Clearly, it was made in a factory, transported there, and then assembled, right?
All 18,000 pieces were then taken to the Champs de Mars and assembled to an accuracy of 1/10 of a millimeter.
So this is what I saw in the picture on the original video's thumbnail. There's like this netting around it in certain sections. I don't know what that's for, but I mean, obviously there's a reason, right? They're doing something to it.
Like a giant Lego set. At one point, there were up to 300 workers on site using small steam cranes and scaffolding to build the tower. More than 2.5 million rivets would hold it all together. Then, on December 7th, 1887, all 4 of the girders met in the middle and began their vertical ascent upwards, racing into the sky. Finally, it was given 4 coats of red lead paint.
Red? And lead paint, but of course they didn't know about the dangers of lead, but red? The Eiffel Tower was originally red. And now it's like a silvery, like a grayish, maybe light blue, but I think it's like more of like a gray, whitish, grayish, bluish sort of, certainly not red. I know that much. Very interesting.
That's right. The Eiffel Tower once more closely resembled the Golden Gate Bridge than the bronze structure it is today. The tallest tower on Earth and a wonder of the modern world was then marked complete.
So I guess it's a bronze color. So I was way wrong when I said it was grayish, bluish, whatever, But that's crazy.
And the French absolutely hated it. Parisians are not known for their restraint when it comes to handing out critiques. It is...
No, they'll riot.
After all, a French word. The tower was labelled a truly tragic street lamp, a half-built factory pipe, and incomplete, confused, and deformed. To his credit, Gustav Eiffel worked tirelessly to defend his structure. He asked his detractors could there not be beauty within his engineering marvel.
Public opinion was, I think, a different story. And that was steadily improving as the tower was growing. By the time it opened in 1879, it had 2 million visitors in the first 6 months. Now, that doesn't suggest
You can go up and down it, can't you? It looks like there's an elevator lift in the middle because I'm seeing the yellow thing go up and the orange thing go down. One might be a counterweight for the elevator, or it might be just two elevators. You know, you got a group of people traveling down, a group traveling up. I don't know. That's clearly an addition, right? They wouldn't have had an elevator originally. I mean, maybe, but it could have been an update. I don't know.
1879, it had 2 million visitors in the first 6 months. Now, that doesn't suggest it was an unwelcome imposition on the, general Parisians or visitors to the exposition. So it very, very quickly became a worldwide icon.
The tower was set to be torn down in 20 short years, and in 1903, plans for demolition were seriously considered. To try and save the tower, Eiffel funded several scientific uses for it, ranging from meteorological observation.
So he didn't want it tore down in 20 years. He's like, nah, we need to save this. Okay.
To wireless telegraphy. It even became of particular military interest when they found it could transmit and receive long-distance signals. All of these efforts ultimately helped to save the tower, and even to this day, it plays a vital role in television and radio broadcasts.
Okay.
Now, after decades of hard work, all Eiffel could hope for was that future generations would take care of his monument as well as he had.
And it looks brown there. Is that just all the surface rust that, since they couldn't get to the 7-year scheduled maintenance because of COVID, they skipped it, kept going? Is it just surface rust, or did they paint it? I mean, I guess earlier they did reference it as a bronze color, but I thought before that they were showing pictures of it being like that grayish kind of. Maybe they changed it, right? Just like people painting the walls on their house or something, right?
A series of reports over the last few years have turned up some troubling results. One in 2010 urged the operating company.
What does it say? They go so fast?
Have turned up some troubling results.
Boom. All right. Eiffel Tower riddled with rust and in need of repair, leaked reports say. Experts say a $60 million repaint before Paris hosts 2024 Olympus is only a cosmetic makeover. Yeah. But it's like, they don't have time to rebuild it before the Olympics, so slap a fresh coat of paint on there to get you through, and after the Olympics is out of the way and there's not like a million eyes on you, start your renovation, right? I get it.
One in 2010 urged the operating company for the tower to come up with a completely new maintenance policy. One in 2014 found cracks and rusting throughout the structure, and that only 10% of the new paint was actually adhering to the tower. Another in 2016 showed there were 885 faults, including 68 that posed serious risk to its durability.
Then get up there.
A third.
Get up there and weld it back together. Replace some metal. Like if there's cracks in there, like fix it, right?
The tower was set to be stripped and have 2 new coats applied. But thanks to delays caused by the pandemic and worrying levels of lead in the old paint, only 5% of the tower is now being treated. Unfortunately, experts are warning that this $64 million repaint could actually make defects in the existing layer of paint worse, resulting in more corrosion, while the
$64 million just to paint the thing, and it may be worse. And you're really not even fixing the problem. You know.
The operating company is nervous to close the tower for any extended periods of time. You see, the Eiffel Tower attracts some 7 million visitors and brings in nearly €100 million of revenue every year. And unfortunately, the operating costs can often exceed that number.
Ooh, are they at the top? I don't know. I have a weird thing with heights. I would be like, I don't know about that. I like being on Earth, on ground level where it's safe. I mean, I'm sure it's not unsafe there, but just I don't know, being so far up makes me feel a certain kind of way.
Number. Painting the tower is no easy task, and it's done in much the same way as it was 135 years ago, with scaffolding or painters abseiling off the side of the structure. They strip, clean, and apply rust proofing before adding a final coat of paint.
That's what the netting and all that's for. The rust, stuff like that that's falling off, you know, you don't want visitors, you don't want people, you know, you don't want it to fall everywhere. So I guess the nets is probably like a mesh, and it just is there to collect everything as they're working inside that section, I bet. Is there anybody watching this that's actually done maintenance on the Eiffel Tower? That would be really cool if you could share some information in the comment section. Actually, that'd be super cool.
The tower is built using puddle iron. In theory,
Puddle.
a material that could last forever as long as it's maintained and prevented from rusting.
What is puddle iron? Which, I mean, wouldn't any kind of iron last forever if it doesn't rust, right?
If this multi-million-dollar repaint proves to be just a band-aid, then it's going to be up to future Parisians to ensure the integrity of the monument.
Looks kind of orangish there. What in the world?
The Eiffel Tower is one of those rare structures that has transcended the rivets and bolts it's made of. It's more than just an observation structure or antenna or a glitzy monument for a long-ago exhibition.
What is it?
It's one of the most recognisable buildings in the world.
Oh,
In
yeah.
that way, Gustav Eiffel has ended up having the last laugh against all of his critics. He was right. There is an astounding and timeless beauty in his engineering.
Eiffel would be absolutely delighted that the tower is still there after all these years, and would feel also partly vindicated that his life left an enduring legacy that now not just Parisians but the world loves, and would be greatly saddened if there ever came a time when the tower had to be demolished for safety reasons.
Yeah, so it's not going to last forever, all right? Not, you know, it eventually it's going to have to go, unless it's one of those where they just replace piece by piece, you know, like every couple years they go up in there and, you know, evaluate, check, see what needs to be replaced, and then over the next year to replace it, you know, go and fabricate the pieces and swap them out, right? Then you could probably have it last forever. And some good rust proofing, of course. Or just make it out of, just start swapping it out for like stainless steel or something that doesn't rust. That'd be, I don't know. Just a thought. I'm not an engineer. I don't know anything about it. Just a random American dude on YouTube. So anyways, you guys have a super fun, awesome day. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care, bye.